Can our disbelief keep Jesus from transforming us? And then the other question, what happens when we create Jesus in our own image? So we're going to kind of take a look at that, looking at this particular passage. Here we are in Mark chapter 6. We're just beginning in Mark chapter 6. We finished up Mark chapter 5 last week. And again, I'm reminding you that this first section up to about chapter 8, the big question is, who is Jesus? That's what the author of the book of Mark is trying to get us to think about. Who is Jesus? Okay. What we have here is that Jesus is now returning to his own hometown. He's returning to the area of Nazareth. This is where he's from. This is where he grew up. This is where he lived and eventually, trained under his father Joseph. So he was well known in this particular area. Now Nazareth, well, what's the best way to describe it? It's sort of like the Mayberry of the region. It's kind of a hick town. It was not known for producing great intellectuals. It was not known for people who did fabulous things with their lives. They didn't become rich and famous. It's kind of like this little backwater town. So he returns to his hometown, and this is what happens. Mark 6, 1 through 6. He left that place and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. On the Sabbath, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astounded. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What is this wisdom that has been given to him? And what deeds of power are being done by his hand? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Then Jesus said to them, "Prophets are not without honor except in their hometown and among their own kin and in their own house." And he could do no deed of power there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and cured them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. So let's talk about Jesus being a rabbi. That's one of the questions presented to us. Is Jesus a rabbi? Well, yes, he was quite famous for his teaching. He was known for his teaching. And so he was an itinerant rabbi, and this was common in this particular time period. Rabbis would travel from place to place, and they would enter into the synagogue, and as a visiting rabbi, they were usually honored and allowed to teach. So traveling rabbis often went to the synagogues to teach. Paul did that all during his missionary journeys. They might be debated, and that was common in the synagogues. You would debate with the rabbis, you would have these long conversations. They were very interactive, but they were treated with respect. Traveling rabbis were treated with respect, except for Jesus when he returns to his hometown. He is not treated with a respect. In fact, it says that the people took offense at him. The people who heard Jesus teach were astounded, it says. Well, why were they astounded? Well, they acknowledged that he had this great wisdom and that he was able to do deeds of power. They're like, wow, we can't believe this. He's so wise, and he does these amazing deeds of power. And so they're a little bit, astounded, confused, and upset at the same time because they stumble over his past. He's a Nazarene. There's even a saying during that time, nothing good comes out of Nazareth. We can't believe that this guy that we know is so wise. We can't believe he's able to do this kind of thing. And so they're a little amazed about this. Where did he get all of this? He certainly didn't get it here. Right? They're like, where did he go off to school? What did he do? How did he get so wise? How is he able to do this? He's not like the rest of us. And so he's kind of trapped in the past. In fact, they say, is this not the carpenter? Isn't this guy the guy that worked as a carpenter here in this town? The son of Mary. Now make sure you catch that phrase, the son of Mary, because culturally, they just insulted him. They just slurred him. Because people were not referred to as the son of whoever their mother was. They were referred to the son of whoever their father was. So they should have said, is this not the carpenter, the son of Joseph? But by doing this, right, they give a little slur on his parentage. So apparently in this area of Nazareth, it was kind of known that Jesus' parentage was a little questionable. If you remember, in some of the longer Gospels like Luke, we have Joseph taking Mary out of that place, and he was going to divorce her quietly because she was pregnant. And so this was probably pretty well known. There was probably gossip and rumors going around. So by referring to Jesus as the Son of Mary, they're kind of putting Jesus back in his place. Oh, look how wise he is, and he does all these deeds of power, this illegitimate child. Did you hear about the whole Mary incident going on? It's not really Joseph's kid. So there's a little slur about his parentage here. They take offense because he's overreaching his place. And I'm sure maybe some of you have experienced this, or people who have experienced this. We call this crab theory. And it comes from crabs in a tank. Anybody ever go to like a Chinese restaurant and you see all those crabs in the tank and maybe one of them starts crawling out? What do the rest of the crabs do? They reach up and they pull them down. And we find this, we use this phrase crab theory to explain a certain phenomenon that happens in minority groups or groups that have been disenfranchised. That if one person of that group begins to rise above the rest of them, the next thing you know, they begin to attack them and pull them down. One of the examples that's used in the deaf culture class at Golden West College is the story of Marlee Matlin. Do you guys know who Marlee Matlin is? She's a deaf actress. She won the Academy Award. And as she, began to rise, her own community began to attack her, saying she was too hearing. She's doing things that she shouldn't do. She went on, she had won the Academy Award, and the next year when she went on the Oscars, she chose to use her voice for part of what she was doing in her presentation, and they attacked her for it. Big offensive, how dare she do that? But this is kind of what happens, especially in groups that are considered lower status. If somebody begins to raise up, they get pulled down. And we can find this happens in our own families too. Sometimes you have one member of the family begin to kind of raise up and begin to do kind of good things, and the other family members attack them and bring them back down. We don't want them getting too uppity. We don't want them developing an ego, thinking they're somebody special, better than us. And this is what is happening to Jesus. He goes back to his hometown, this town of pretty much Hicks, and they're like, where'd this guy get all this wisdom? How's he able to do power deeds? Well, he's illegitimate. Let's bring him back down. We don't want him getting too prideful after all, thinking he's somebody special. So this is what's going on. Miracles and faith. Now, is there a connection between miracles and faith? And depending upon which denomination of Christianity you go to, some people would say definitely yes, and other people would say definitely no. I'd say there is a connection, but it may not be the one that you think it is. Right? Some people say that you can't actually, have a miracle unless you have faith. And then you get kind of on the crazy side, those who are in the Word of Faith movement. If you're in the Word of Faith movement, you believe that faith is an actual substance. It's like, I like to refer to it as cosmic Play-Doh. It's what the world's made up of. And that by faith, you shape this Play-Doh into whatever you want or need. So do you need a new car? If you have enough faith, you can shape that into a car and manifest it. It's kind of crazy. It has its historical roots, but there you go. So do you need to have faith to get a miracle? Because it says that Jesus could do no deeds of power there. Right? He's shocked by their unbelief, and he was unable, or was he unable? He could do no deeds of power there. And the question is, was he actually unable to do it because the people didn't have faith? Or did he just simply not do it because they didn't have faith? Which one is it? See, he was amazed at their unbelief. Why couldn't Jesus do these deeds of power? And kind of here's my thing. If you look nowadays, I brought out my favorite fraudster here. Okay, you guys know who this is? This is Peter Popoff. After getting busted with his fake word of knowledge stuff, He went on and he's now doing miracle spring water. You can go online right now, you can sign up, and Peter Popoff will send you this very little packet here, and it's got miracle spring water. And if you follow the very complicated list of directions that read like some kind of alchemical spell, and you do all the things you're supposed to, you will get some kind of miracle that you're looking for. I actually had them send it to us. It's actually very complicated directions. Okay, you've got to rub it a certain way and put it under your pillow and sleep with it a certain way. All this kind of stuff. You got to do this for 3 or 4 days in a row, and all this and then you drink it, and then you get your miracle. Oh, but of course, the most important part. What's the most important part of getting your miracle? Besides all these steps you have to go through and drinking the water and all that kind of stuff. You know what the most important? Yeah, Julie's got it. You better plant that seed of faith and send him a check. Because you're probably not going to get a miracle unless you send him a check. He even has suggested amounts, right? Because the Lord has laid upon his heart that you're going to write him like a $700 check or something like that, and then you're going to get your miracle. So, right? But anyway, he's going to teach you that you have to have faith to receive your miracle. If you don't have faith, no miracle. But I don't think that's always true, because as I read through the Bible, there are people who had no faith whatsoever, and yet God gave them a miracle. There are people who had little faith, and God gave them miracles. And there are people who had great faith and no miracle. And so we have to be careful when we talk about this relationship between faith and miracles. I know some people, and we have people in our own church right now, people of great faith, and yet they are suffering, and no miracle is coming their way. Should I look at them and condemn them, saying, well, you just don't believe enough, you don't pray enough, you're not doing enough? You didn't write a big enough check? You didn't plant a big enough seed of faith? That's the problem? No, absolutely not. What do I think the correlation between faith and miracles is? Well, this is what I think the correlation between faith and miracles is. A little picture of a plane taking off. Picture of a plane taking off. I kind of use this to describe the difference between just believing things, that's what some people think faith is, and then acting on your beliefs. That's what I think faith is. Acting on your beliefs. For example, I can go down to the airport, I can watch planes take off and land all day, I can literally study aviation theory and all that kind of stuff, and I can believe that planes can take off and fly. I can believe that. But I don't think I actually have faith until I get on the plane. See, when I put my beliefs into action, that's what I call faith. So Abraham believed he was called, and he left Ur, and he followed after God. See, he took his belief, and he put it into action. So that's what I think faith is, belief in action. So I kind of liken it to this. If you don't believe something, you won't act. For example, with the COVID-19 vaccines, some people believe they work, some people didn't believe they worked. The people who believed they worked, guess what they did? They went and got a vaccine. Those who didn't get a vaccine. Those people who thought it was evil, and that, who was it? Bill Gates was microchipping us. They definitely did not get a vaccine. They were acting on their beliefs. But if you don't believe something, you're not going to act. So I believe in this passage, and this is just my interpretation, you don't have to, hold to it. The reason that Jesus could not do great deeds of power is because the people didn't come to him for it. It says, except for a few sick people. That the people simply didn't believe because he was a Nazarene, because they knew who he was, because they grew up with him, because they kept him trapped in his own past, because they were trapped in their past. They didn't come to Jesus for great deeds of power, so he couldn't do them. I think that's the reason why. Again, that's my interpretation. I know there are other ones out there. There are people who will tell you, well, they just didn't have faith, so they didn't manifest. But, take a look at it for yourself, see what you think. Feel free to mention it in the comments. Jairus sent for Jesus because he believed Jesus could heal. That's from chapter 5, Jairus' daughter. His daughter was sick, so he sent for Jesus. He acted. He believed Jesus could heal. He acted. He sent for Jesus. He had faith. He believed that Jesus could do this, right? The woman in chapter 5 who reached out for Jesus to be healed believed that Jesus could heal her. That's why she acted. Jesus couldn't demonstrate his power in Nazareth because people acted on their disbelief. They didn't even bother to ask. They didn't go to him. They didn't reach out to him. They didn't send for him. They didn't call for him. That's what I think. So, having heard this, how are we going to live this out? What should we do with this information? Well, the people of Nazareth rejected Jesus because they believed he was like them. He's just another one of us hicks. How can he be so smart? How can he do anything? There's never been anybody good come out of Nazareth. I don't know about this guy. He's a little too uppity, if you ask me. Besides, you know about his mom. You know about his mom? I'll tell you all about his mom. It's a great, big, juicy story. They just acted on their beliefs. You know, I find this oftentimes is true. You know, there's an old saying, you can't go home again. You guys know that saying, you can't go home again? Sometimes when you've been away from a place for a long time and you go back, well, it's changed, of course, because everything changes and progresses. But you know that 10-mile walk you used to make to school? And you're like, when did they move the school a block away from my house? I swear it was 10 miles before. Or that fence, you know, that fence that used to tower over you that was 12 feet tall, and you go there now and it's only 4 feet tall? And you're like, when did they tear down the other half of this fence? That's weird. You go back and you look at things, you're like, has it always been like that? Did they change it? What happened? Because when you're a little kid, things are different. But not only that, there's just some weird stuff that happens sometimes too. People you haven't seen for a long time, they expect you to be like you were the last time they saw you. A lot of people who knew me way back in the day, right, in my late teens and early 20s, when I was junior high pastor, are completely shocked when they see me now. And it's not just the fact that my hair has gone white instead of red. It's not as long as it used to be. It's not that I've put on weight. It's I'm not as wild and crazy as I used to be. They look at me and they're like, oh, dude, do you still play spam ball? And for those of you who don't know how to play spam ball, it's an awful lot like a mix between basketball and football played with a large ball of spam that has to go into the hoops that are sitting on top of a leader's head. So, you know, and they're like, I'm like, I haven't played that since I was like 22. I've kind of graduated. Okay, we did that for the junior hires because it was funny, all right, you know. I haven't actually duct taped a child to a wall in 30 or 40 years. All right. But people still think that I'm like this wild, crazy person out there that I used to be. And I've kind of grown up. I haven't done those things for a long time, but they expect me to be like that. And they're a little shocked that I'm not like that anymore. You know, they're like, oh, are you still duct taping kids to the wall? No, I just failed them in class. You know, it's a different kind of fun. A lot of them are surprised. They're like, wait, you're a college professor? You know, how is that possible? They want to keep me trapped in my past. And this was what was happening with them. The people of Nazareth rejected Jesus because they believed he was like them, that they hadn't grown, that they hadn't changed. Are we making Jesus over into our own image? You know, the Jesus of your childhood that you were taught, that image should have changed over time. The question is, are you trying to make him like you? They were trying to make him like them. They're like, we're a bunch of hicks. He should be a hick. Are you trying to make Jesus into your own image? What happens when you do that, when you turn Jesus into your own image? Well, he takes on your political slant, and he becomes a reflection of who you are. See, when I hear people talk about Jesus, it reveals to me who they are. Are they violent? Are they angry? Because their Jesus will be violent and angry. Are you holding yourself back to fit your past image? Are you holding yourself back? Oh, you know, I got to go see my family, so I got to be all this way again. All my cousins, this is what they expect of me. They don't realize I've grown up and changed. Are you holding yourself back? You know, sometimes the best thing you can do is to break away from your old groups so that you're able to grow. Now, in my college days, I had a group affectionately that I refer to as the slack pack because we were a bunch of slackers. We really were. We were huge underachievers. And we thought nothing of, spending the day just kind of, playing computer games and doing stuff like that. And it really wasn't until I sort of broke away from them that I was able to kind of develop the focus I needed to really kind of get my career and everything else on track and to grow. But I had to kind of put them aside. And so when I see them now, I kind of look at them, and some of them are still slackers. I like, you're all still hanging out together, and you're still slackers, and you need to grow up. You need to move beyond this. Are you holding yourself back, trying to fit into your own past? We need to grow beyond our beginnings. Life is a journey of growth. We're not supposed to stay in the same place all the time. Are you holding other people back to fit their past image? Are you expecting other people to always stay the same? Are you allowing them to grow and change? There is a great book, and it's a great book on relationships, and it's hidden as a children's book. You'd pick it up and you would think it's a children's book, but it's really about relationships. It's called The Missing Piece. Anybody ever read it? It's by Shel Silverstein. The Missing Piece. It's about like this one piece is out there looking for their missing piece to fill them up and to satisfy them. And one day that they find the missing piece, the piece that fits in them. But there's a problem. The missing piece begins to grow and it no longer fits. See, sometimes even in our relationships, we stop the other person from growing because if they grow, then they aren't fulfilling our particular needs anymore. It's a great book. You should read it one day. Are you holding other people back to fit their past images? Are you forcing Jesus to be who he was when you were a child? And you don't see how complex that he is now. What futures are you preventing by not allowing people to transcend their past? Are you allowing people to grow? Are you allowing people to change? Are you allowing people to transcend their past? Are you transcending your past? Otherwise, you're kind of preventing certain futures. This is what happened to Jesus in Nazareth. He could do no deeds of great power because the people wouldn't allow him to grow up beyond being a carpenter of questionable heritage. What are you doing to transcend who you were? How are you growing? How are you changing? Or are you stuck where you used to be? With that, let me close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we're just coming to you. We have to first ask for forgiveness where we have clung to childhood images of who you were. Help us to break free of those. Father, I just pray for every person in here who may feel like they're trapped, who feels like they have to be somebody that they're not because their family expects it or their friends expect it. Help them to break free, Lord. Help them to transcend what they once were to become who you want them to be. Lord, let us examine our own relationships. If we are in relationships that are not allowing us to grow, let us move out of those. Sometimes it hurts, but it's necessary. And more than anything else, we just ask that we can cling to you and journey with you into growth. We pray this in your name. Amen. Let's not get stuck in our past. I'm not the same children's minister I was at 17, who was a whiz at flannel graphs. Even though I still have a few flannel graph skills. I saw the video this week. I saw my flannel graph. Okay. And I'm not the same 21-year-old who planned his first youth event and had the city fire department show up. Second youth event. Well, actually, I'm not the same, right? First youth event I ever planned and ran. The city fire department showed up. The head youth minister came to me and said, your next event, we better not have the fire department show up. So the police department showed up to my second one. So he told me, let me be a little more clear. We better not get any city services here. To which my response was, what about federal agencies? Is that cool? Or, I mean, if the FBI shows up, so I'm not that same person anymore. I've run all kinds of events now, not had any city services or federal agencies show up. You know, I'm not the same person. So you're not stuck in your past. You can go on further. If you found today's content helpful, be sure and like this video and share your comments with us below. You can give a little comment about what you think about my particular interpretation of that passage. I'd be glad to hear from you. It helps our community here as well as our YouTube channel, so we thank you so much for that. Let me close out with this benediction. As you leave this place, acknowledge the transformation of yourself and others. You are not a prisoner of your past. God bless you all. Go in peace. You are dismissed.
We are one in Christ. We are one in God. We are one in unity. We are one in truth. We are one in